Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, a podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Steve Plumb, Editor-in-Chief for SME Media, along with Amy Bryson, Cary Gitter, and a new member of the team, Rachel Thomas, who joined SME Media in early September. Thanks, everyone, and welcome to the podcast land, Rachel.
Yes, thank you for the warm welcome, Steve. This is actually my first podcast ever that I've recorded, so happy to be here. Happy for this to be my first one.
Well, as Bruce Willis says in Die Hard, welcome to the party.
Thank you so much.
So we're here to talk about the November issue of Manufacturing, Engineering, and Technology, which is being mailed to readers as we speak. And the articles should be already start to appear online. And while the issue also includes our annual Aerospace and Defense Industry Report, we'll save that for a later date. But Amy, if you could kick us off, what were some of the things that stood out for you?
Yeah, well, this issue is just chock full of really good stuff. So we hope everybody checks it out. And one of the articles that caught my eye was a feature by Eileen Wolf. And it talks about medical device makers for hire. And that really explores this trend of contract manufacturing organizations, or CMOs, expanding their footprint in medical device production. And to provide just a bit of context, if you think about it, there are 3,000 new medical devices that are cleared for use every year. And with medical OEMs facing a lot of complexity and regulatory requirements, and just simply a need to innovate faster to, accommodate those 3,000 new devices that are needed each year, many are focusing their in-house resources on core competencies such as clinical or patient-focused priorities. And this opens a door for electronics manufacturers. And one example that Eileen discusses is Flex. And they started out as a traditional electronic contract manufacturer, and over the past, say, 6 or 7 years, have really transformed into a real partner for OEMs. And they're bringing advanced manufacturing and products and integrated services. So CMOs that provide not only manufacturing, but strategic insight and innovation support are becoming indispensable allies. So this trend of more collaborative relationships between OEMs and CMOs is becoming essential and is something for us to watch as more players enter the market. And speaking of dynamic markets, the November Manufacturing USA spotlight is on AIM Photonics, or the American Institute for Manufacturing Integrated Photonics. And for any of those who don't know a great deal about photonics, it's basically baked into our daily lives. So photonic integrated circuit, or PIC technology, is really at the core of high-speed, high-bandwidth data communication. So if you think about the internet, data centers, and those 5G networks that we all rely on every day. And because PICs transmit data using light versus electricity, they're super efficient, reliable, and fast. And over the past 10 years, AIM Photonics has been a major facilitator of advancing manufacturing in the U.S., and in part because they have an open access platform for the domestic development of PICs. And that's important because it makes it affordable and accessible for companies of all sizes. And one of the innovations among the many that have successfully transitioned from prototype phase to commercial adoption is in the field of health monitoring. It's this device that offers lab quality biomarker testing in a package that's 100 times smaller and more affordable than conventional diagnostics. So that's just one of many examples. And it's an interesting read in an interesting space that's evolving rapidly, and definitely an area to keep an eye on that has real world implications across multiple industries. And we talk a lot about, real world use cases. And I know that, speaking of that, this month's Shop Solutions is focused on a business and its journey toward modernization through automation. And Cary, I know you have some thoughts on that one.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, this is a really interesting story to cover. So a gentleman named Chris Bascal took over Catamount Machine Works, a machine shop in Plant City, Florida, that manufactures components for aerospace and defense, marine, and other sectors. And he actually came at this as a businessman, he'd been in telecommunications. He did not have a manufacturing background. So he really he wanted to find a company that was in existence and had a good reputation, but that could be updated and transformed. So Catamount was about 20 years old when he took it over in 2020 during the pandemic, 15,000 square foot shop. And he kind of set about this 3 to 5 to 10 year strategic plan based around his three watchwords, which were automation, certifications, and technology. So we started with the basics, updating the lighting, the HVAC, the security system, all those kind of foundational things. And then he went about getting Fanuc robots into the shop, pursuing certification for aerospace and cybersecurity, which included scanning 20 years worth of legacy documents and digitizing all of the institutional knowledge at the shop. And then toward standardization with technology, Chris partnered with Verisurf, which is a metrology software company based in California, to update his measurement software and integrate it with the Mastercam, which the shop uses for CAD/CAM programming. So that was a really collaborative process. And I also spoke to David Olson, who's at Verisurf, about how they worked closely with Catamount to customize their software. And Catamount actually needed metrology software for 5-axis machining, which is something that Verisurf hadn't done yet. And so at Catamount's urging, Verisurf actually kind of took their own software to a different place to serve Catamount's needs. So both companies benefited from the partnership, and Chris is now moving on to the next phase of his strategic plan, which is to start scaling. Now he has 5-axis, he has robots, he has Verisurf, so he's really well positioned to move into the next phase. But yeah, it's just a really interesting portrait of someone coming in and transforming a shop through all this technology and modernization. And technology is also a theme of a feature article by Kip Hansen, our contributing editor, about next generation welding. And this is a really interesting piece because, welding we think of as this really kind of traditional machining process, but that too is being affected by technology and digitization. Kip writes about companies starting to employ handheld laser systems, software, cobots, all to make their welding quicker, more efficient, more accurate. And we actually saw this when we were at FabTech. We were talking to Universal Robots, who Kip mentions in the article, about how when they first introduced cobot welding systems in 2017 at FabTech, it was kind of shocking to people. But now that's becoming a widespread practice. It's being adopted more and more. And one thing that Kip touches on in the article is that there is an upfront cost for this kind of technology when it comes to welding. But as somebody that he interviewed from a company in Wisconsin says, these systems actually enable you to hire somebody with very little experience as a welder, and they can be producing high quality welds in no time at all, using a handheld laser system or a cobot. So it is actually a way also for manufacturers to address the skills gap and get workers up to speed much quicker who may not have that legacy welding experience that more experienced workers would have. So yeah, it's fascinating to see how technology is kind of continuing to touch every aspect of the industry, including something as nuts and bolts as welding. And how about you, Steve? What stood out to you in this issue?
Well, there is a lot. One of the buzzwords of the last few years is sustainability, of course. And while some companies give lip service to the idea, others are really making it a key part of their businesses, as is evident in 2 of the November articles. And our good friend Kip Hansen, of course, was at the core of it and aptly puts it in his feature, sustainable equals smart. And while sustainability can be put on the back burner amid the everyday chaos shops face, along with new concerns such as tariffs and government shutdowns. For those who put such processes in motion, it can have a positive effect on their bottom lines too. Accumold, for example, takes much care in working to reduce waste as it does to design innovative micromolds for tiny gears and other products. Last year, the company recycled something like 1 ton of PPE, 22,000 pounds of used scrap metal, and 5,000 pounds of electronic waste. It then resells much of the waste to a third-party vendor to make consumer products. Meanwhile, our how-to series provided by the leader of Sandvik Cormont's sustainability efforts shares some of the challenges and opportunities of meeting zero guidelines established under the International Energy Agency. He notes that 9.2 billion tons of industrial waste are generated each year, which is really staggering, when you think about it. Uh, Anybody want to hazard a guess how many times around the world 9.2 billion tons of industrial waste would go, or how far up into space?
Many, many, many miles. I don't know.
That would be an understatement, and I don't know the exact amount either. But
Oh, I thought Steve, come on. You're supposed to have the answer if you're asking the question.
I'm asking you guys. You're the experts. A lot. Anyway, working toward a net zero goal prioritizes ways to significantly cut down CO2 emissions within the manufacturing process. Patrick, who from Sandvik, said you have to ensure you have a clear overview of the parts of the value chain with the greatest issues. And he identified 3 key areas. One was upgrade tooling and machinery. The second one was introduce circular processes. And the third was supporting people and communities, which is always important. And, Rachel, as even though, you kind of came in at the tail end of this issue, and as we were putting it together, what were some of your insights?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. I really enjoyed the story on JBM Packaging's Fair Chance program. Their CEO and president, Marcus Shinshank, says the company is committed to employing individuals who have experienced incarceration. And so far, 43% of their team members were hired through the Fair Chance program. And, the article also talks about how JBM Packaging implemented the Fair Chance program as a way to address today's labor shortage. But beyond just stabilizing business, this program brings in, more purpose to the company and helps formerly incarcerated individuals contribute to a healthier and resilient community. Marcus shared that the program has become an intentional investment into the company culture, and they found people that are hired through the program to have a much lower turnover rate. And, Marcus also adds that it takes more than just offering people a job. It's about really dedicating time and resources to them, such as giving them flexibility as they work on external matters, which includes securing housing and transportation or working on rebuilding their personal relationships with family and loved ones. And Marcus also shared a few tips for other companies who are implementing, second chance hiring programs. And speaking of familiar relationships, another story that I enjoyed was this month's SME Speaks column, which details how family legacy really inspired the author's career path. And the SME Speaks column for this month was actually one of the first stories I got to read and edit when I joined the SME Media team as well. So this month's column was written by Zachary Loeb, who is an environmental engineer and a longtime SME member. And he talks about his grandfather, who he says was a lifelong SME member as well as an instructor and mentor. And Zachary said he'd spend hours with his grandfather as he judged robotics competitions and watched his grandfather work in his machine shop. And that dedication that he saw from his grandfather to advance the industry and solve problems for society inspired his own career. And, Zachary's attempts and, work to find the balance of the needs of society and, the responsibility to protect the environment as well. And I think that's what it's really all about. How can we as individuals, how can manufacturers create something that helps society while, also using the planet's resources as responsibly as possible? So those are two stories that I really enjoyed and I thought really humanized the work.
That really is the circle of life. You brought it back there to sustainability and community. And Zachary's story is a familiar one in manufacturing, where there's so many second, third, and fourth generation family-owned companies, or just people that have grown up in the industry. And that Fair Chance article also is inspiring and amazing. I know we've done similar stories in the past on the workforce development series that we do, and Tooling You is very instrumental in some of those programs. But thanks again, everyone. Rachel, Amy, and Cary, it's been a pleasure as always. And I'd also like to remind listeners to like and subscribe to our feed across your favorite podcast channels. And for the latest manufacturing news, please visit advancedmanufacturing.org.